All right, we'll call to order Safety and Public Works, the City of Brainerd. It is December 2nd, 2024, 7 p.m. in council chambers. We have 5 items tonight. First item is approval of payment for improvement 22-08 for South Brainerd reconstruction. And it looks like this is Public Works Director Mike Habekorst.
Thank you. And so this here we are just requesting that final payment be approved of. The staff is requesting that the payment be approved for the South Brainerd reconstruction project. With the completion of the project, the majority of it's already done. It's just really the turf that is remaining. And the overage on this regarded several things, a couple tree removals that we didn't anticipate, some extra paving that we had to do for some potholes. And so we are asking for this to be, that we authorize this for us to complete this payment. And it's a little bit over, and then we're going to be keeping about 1%. We're going to hold that back, and that's based on state statute that after it's all completed, then we'll pay that. But we're asking for this to be paid. Any questions?
Move to approve staff's recommendation on this, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 2, we have a final pay estimate for improvement 24-02 2024 chip sealing. Again, this is Public Works Director Mike Habekorst.
So the final project was 159,000 and some change. We're over about 10,000, and the overage is really due for that wrapping every intersection. When we surveyed this, we didn't anticipate, that wrapping, and you need to do that. The contractor brought that up to our attention, and so that's really the main concern with that, but you have to wrap every intersection when you're going down that road. The other concern with this, and then the next item, is we didn't really have any contingencies. And I know it's our standard practice not to have contingencies, but when you're doing projects like this, there's so many unknowns that it's nice to have contingencies. But nonetheless, we're just asking to recommending the final payment to be made with this project.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Explain what wrapping is again, if you wouldn't mind.
So when you're going down one road and there's side roads, you have to just bleed that into those other side roads so that it's just not your one street that is being paved.
That's to wrap
So
around
as
the
it
radius
goes
of the
down
curve.
the road, you're making a cross versus just a straight line.
Yep.
So is that about 3 extra feet on either side each intersection?
Yeah. And that just adds up when we didn't anticipate that. But it's a good thing that we did that because now the project is 100% complete and done properly.
Was that brought up by the contractor during the bidding or during the project?
After.
Okay.
And that was a little bit on our side. When the staff surveyed that, we needed to include that in, and that's in our recommendation down here. Jesse and his crew for the future will be looking at those tighter and looking at all those variables.
Okay.
I move to approve the final pay request for improvement 24-2024, the chip sealing project in the amount of $159,736.09.
So, second.
Motion and a second. Do we have any more discussion? Any more motion? Okay.
Good try one.
Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 3, we have a final pay estimate for improvement 2315 and 2327 Evergreen Bluff resurfacing project. Again, Public Works Director Mike Habekorst.
So this really went down into 2 different projects. It was on the Bluff and on the Evergreen. On the Bluff side, what really threw this off was one tree we had to replace. It was a larger tree, and then when we took that out, there was a major drainage issue. So we just couldn't leave a drainage issue on a neighbor, so we had to really take that on. That affected the curb. We had to redo the curb, and that was on the Bluff side. And then on the Evergreen side, there was just the contractor, when they're striping, they indicated a number of arrows needed to be, we needed more arrows for proper traffic flow. And so again, to do it properly, we decided to do that. And that were the issues with these two projects going over. The previous item was just less than, about 5% overage. This one here is more than that. But again, when you get into the tree removal on larger trees and it affects the drainage and now curbing has to be done, it really threw this one out of the budget.
Was there any wrapping on this one?
No, this one here was, it was resurfacing too, but when we estimated that, there was enough, for whatever reason, the contractor was within that line item that he didn't do that. Whether he took this upon himself and saying, hey, I'm just going to throw it in the project because I'm already asking for 26, which is, has been done before. Other contractors do that.
Thank you. Yeah, I did see the size of the tree. It was a giant cottonwood that, right next to the curb, basically growing.
I would move to approve staff's recommendation on this, Mr. Chair.
Second.
A motion and a second. I just have one question. I don't know if maybe I missed it on here. There's two separate projects. It doesn't say necessarily how much overage was on each side, or was it all on the bluff portion?
It's in the attachments when you drill down into those attachments there. Thank you, Sean. Hey, it's
Sean's drilling. I like that.
you'd have to take out, when it comes down to the tree, curb, add up those, and then the arrows, and then add up those for that other project.
Arrows, what do you mean by arrows?
Those directional arrows that are painted on and they would just recommended that we do more of them for proper flow. So we wanted to concur with our contractor.
What are the arrows?
Directional arrows, like a turn signal. Sometimes you'll either have 2 or 3 for one turn area, and other times you'll just have 1, 2. It all depends on the flow of traffic. And again, we just follow suit with our contractor.
All right.
His license is on the line.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 4, we have a approval of a layout for the Lowell Safe Routes to School project. Again, Public Works Director Mike Abacorst.
We talked about this last council meeting, just regarding the detour, that we're just going to let this play out. And we have a contractor here. Thank you, Paul, for joining us just regarding the layout of this. So we're just really looking at the layout and approving the layout. So from here, I'll turn it over to Paul.
All right, thanks for having me tonight, members of the committee. So Lowell Safe Routes to School.
Sorry, sir. Name and address.
Paul Sandy, 9416 Northtown Street, Brainerd.
Thank you, sir.
So you can see the layout that we inevitably landed on up here on the screen here tonight. So the project located on 8th Street between 3rd Avenue Northeast and 4th Avenue Northeast. City entered into a contract with us, WSB, to design and facilitate construction of this Safe Routes to School project. The city got some grant funding from the state of Minnesota, similar to what occurred on Harrison on Oak Street, for a similar type improvement. When we were laying this out, there were 2 options that we did consider. The one that kind of bubbled to the top after some meetings with the school district is what's shown here tonight, but I can go over both option 1 and option 2 to kind of tell you what the differences were between those two. Option 1, this included narrowing of the street to basically reduce the ped crossing distance, so similar to what we did on Oak Street. That median refuge island on 8th Street that reduces the pedestrian crossing distance from north to south across the street, and also from east to west on certain streets. So option 1, which is the one you're looking at here, includes that narrowing of the streets to reduce the ped crossing distance and bump outs at all 4 intersections on the north and south side of H. I will point out that after we met with the school district, we presented this option 1 to them, and another option, which we were calling option 2, had bump outs at all the corners, and that would really impede their pickup and drop off procedures at this school. They claim that a lot of times the traffic is queuing on H Street between 3rd and 4th in that parking lane for pickup and drop-off times. And there's also additional queuing that happens west of 3rd on H Street for vehicles waiting to drop their children off. Those bump outs cause a little bit of a problem when it comes to queuing because traffic has to move around the bump out across the intersection and then back into the parking lane to drop their children off to stay out of the lane of traffic. So that's why in this,
I'm sorry, do you mind if so when you say on Third Avenue, they want a queue to drop off their kids, are they dropping them off on the west side of Third then? Because is that what I understand?
no, so the way I understand it is vehicles will travel up 3rd, north on 3rd Street.
Right.
Turn the corner on to H, going eastbound, and they would have to move around that bump out.
But they drop them off on the north side of the school? Then?
Yes,
Okay,
correct,
thank you.
yep.
That's what I didn't okay, thanks.
Actually, I use this for pickup and drop off. We actually will queue up along H Street. Traffic heads east, and that line backs up all the way across 3rd Street.
Yep.
Along H Street, and so instead of going around bump outs on H Street, both before and after 3rd, and then again at 4th, getting rid of those bump outs, the line actually wraps all the way around the block, and drop off and pickup happen on the south side where the front door is now located.
Yep.
So
So-
this works way better.
Yeah, so we don't have option 2 in the packet, but I can explain the differences. Option 2 basically had all the bump outs at every corner except for one, I believe, and that was the corner of 4th and H in the southwest quadrant was the only one that was missing off of that layout. But the conversations with the school district really made us reconsider that and not include the bump outs on basically all the corners adjacent to the school to allow that queuing and pickup and drop off. So like I said, we had some meetings. The comments we received from the school district were that queuing issue that I brought up. Other comments included they considered closing that north driveway. You can see it here on the drawing. At the school here, that yellow driveway shown. Sean, if you can point that out on the south side of 8th Street. Yep. They elected that was a useful driveway approach to have for, I'm assuming, deliveries of certain natures to the school, so they wanted that returned. The other thing they said is that they support all the features that are planned here to make improve student safety, with especially crossing the busier H Street at that pickup and drop-off time. Some other features of option 1, there are 2 RFRB flashing systems. They're shown here. They're the north and south crossings at 4th Avenue. It would be the the west side of the intersection, those blue dots right there. Those are those rapid flashing beacons like you see on Oak Street. Similarly, on the 3rd Avenue side, there's a set of rapid flashing beacons there also. The 8-foot median, as I was kind of saying, that 8 foot is kind of a minimum standard for ADA purposes so that students that of all abilities are able to use that pedestrian refuge to cross one lane of traffic at a time. They can fit a wheelchair in that pedestrian refuge and look both ways before they cross the next lane. The parking lanes are maintained on both sides of H Street at a minimum 7-foot state aid. This project is a state aid funded project, so that 7 foot is a requirement of state aid funding. A 16-foot clearance between the bump outs is included between the curb and the median island for maintenance and snow plowing. And then the ADA requirement, the project, the south side sidewalk in front of Lowell will be getting replaced with this project. That pink on the south side there will be getting replaced with this project. I think that's all I had. If there's any questions, I can answer those at this time.
Only question I have looking at it, on the south side of H Street on the lane where all the cars are queued, how much distance is there? You said 16 feet or is it?
It's a minimum of 16. So where there's, for example, on the way east end of the project between the bump out and the median island, that's a minimum of a 16-foot distance.
So it's
And
even
so,
more
yep.
along the school. Okay.
When you talk about the flashing lights, as I'm approaching the intersection from either direction, where exactly are those going to be located? Are they well in advance, east or west of the intersection as I'm going either direction? Or where, I misunderstood what you described there.
Yeah, so you have to cross, so for example, if you're on the north side of H Street, you have to cross 3rd or 4th without those rapid flashing beacons. The rapid flashing beacons are only for the H Street crossing.
Yeah, east and west. You only see them traveling east or west.
No, you would see them travel, well, yeah, yes, you would,
Right.
if you're in a vehicle traveling east and
Right,
west, but
so
as a pedestrian.
Where are they located at?
So the first rapid flashing beacon is just west of 4th Avenue to cross north and south across H Street, just to the west of 4th.
Okay.
And then the other one is to the east of 3rd.
Okay, that's what I was
Yep.
wondering. Thank you. I thought they'd be more in advance of that, but they're lights, so they don't have to be, obviously, so. Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I would move that we accept the recommendation here for this design for the Safe Routes to School project at Lowell School.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Mr. Habergors?
Yeah, I'd just like to indicate, Paul, if you could just send my thank you to all your staff regarding just reaching out to the school. That's just huge, that engagement. And with that engagement, we got a better design. So thanks for all your work on that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandy. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Final item we have for SPW is a discussion on the sanitary forest main sewer lining project and sewer rates. Again, Public Works Director Mike Abakorst.
From last week, our last meeting, we met with staff with Chris and BPU and our city engineer, and their staff discussed the priorities, and we are still recommending that this project be looked at the 2027. And there's just a lot of variables that, and along that time, along between now and then, if we find out more information as we go, we can pivot and we can readjust these priorities as we go. But with the information that we have right now, we're still recommending the 2027, that we stay with this. And we're still going to be working very closely with BPU staff and really making sure that our two projects, the streets and the underground, all the different utilities, that we stay close in communication and working together as one team, just moving forward to get this 10-year plan completed.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, if on the agenda request, Mr. Habakorst, okay, at the pretty much the end of it, before it says the recommended action, the very last line there, staff is anticipating rates may have to be adjusted over 25% over the next 3 years to cover the $800,000. After that time, the rates would be at a level where they're a new large project with the continue to identified regularly, or the sanitary sewer fund would be overfunded. And I've asked this question, what are the consequences of that fund being overfunded? It makes it sound like that's a problem, and I still haven't got an answer for that. So if somebody would be willing to explain why that's worded that way. As if
Mr.
there's-
Habergorst? Oh, sorry.
I'm not sure of the technical reasons why it would be overfunded or the ramifications of that, but I do know that we have a number of projects that are in a large dollar amount that I would have hesitancy to indicate that we're going to be overfunded. If we start doing these projects and we get them lined up with our two different work units and getting in sync with that, we could easily avoid that problem. I think would be pretty easy. But again, Chris, do you have anything, Mr. Evans?
Well, if there's Mr. Chair, I've asked this question. It looks, if you read that, it looks like that's not somehow appropriate. It's not allowed. There's a consequence to it. And I still don't have an answer to why it's worded that way. This is the second time we've seen this exact same wording. I asked about it before our last meeting. And I think Mr. Broyles, you indicated to Connie in an email to let us know what's up with that. And I still haven't heard on that. And it looks like it's suggesting that we can't do this because we can't have that account overfunded. And I'm just not happy with that answer. I know this seems like a small detail, but if it's not, if you're not worried about an overfunding, then why is this memo before us twice now? This meeting and our last meeting, identical wording.
Jeff, maybe I can shed some light on that. I might be looking at it a little differently, but from what I had conversations with Jesse on this one recently, it gives us time to raise that money without shifting any rates, is what I'm kind of reading into. And to be able to do it on our own with those funds in 3 years from now. We've also talked, though, about the possibility of state bonding for this project as well. And in that case, we would definitely have what would be referred to in this memo as overfunding. But I think we have plenty of other projects to spend this on. We have miles and miles of pipe to fix and replace and line and everything like that. So I think this is a safe way of raising the money ourselves or possibly state bonding, doing it so we don't have to go further in debt. But I think maybe the way that it was written in there is a little misleading. I think that's maybe what you're getting at.
Well, if I could, I appreciate your attempt at explaining that, but the one thing that bothers me the most about this project was scheduled for this year. We all know that, right? Mm-hmm. And the price comes in at 3 times what they anticipated. But now we're willing to jack it up another 25% by waiting 2 years. I just can't stomach that. We always talk about what's in the best interest of our taxpayers. And this project, this program, if you will, as it's worded here, first of all, it's called the force main. There's no force main work in this project at all. But we got it labeled as such in our agenda item. That's one thing. This goes into drains into a lift station, which then goes into the force main. Is there any work on the force main being proposed on this?
Mr. Habergars?
I'm not sure of that exact thing, but as projects are prioritized, every set of data that we receive, we reprioritize those projects. Just as I indicated earlier, that if we get more data, this may recommend that we move it sooner and so forth. We just have to pivot as we get more information, as we get that. And right now, there's other collapsing issues that we have going on with the city of Brainerd underneath our streets that are putting in our staff's recommendation a higher priority that we should do versus this one. And this one needs to be done. Yeah, don't get me wrong. But when we have collapsed sewer lines happening and other stuff that even hasn't been surveyed, it's hard to put this on the top of the priority list when we have other things that are going on.
Well, I will say that this was on the priority list for this year. And what stymied it was the cost. That was what Mr. Dean told me when I talked to him about this a month ago or whenever it was. And when it comes in this high, and we say, well, let's put it off another 2 years or perhaps almost 3, and we just put it on the taxpayer. What the heck? I mean, it's only $300,000-400,000 more. What the heck? I mean, I just don't. I don't agree with that at all. I think we have this project. Is it the staff doesn't have the time or what? I heard that as part of the information that I received from Nick. They were burdened by a resignation, and there's a lot of other stuff going on. This is, first of all, we had an estimate. It was completely shot out of the water from 400 and some odd thousand, if I'm not mistaken, to 1.1 million. And now we're pushing it out to 1.4 million. I don't understand that rationale. And we talk about bonding. Well, let's just pay the interest. Let's just cover it over time. And then it just doesn't make any sense. We know there's a problem. It's been looked at for 20 years. So we just keep kicking it down the road. Who knows, in 2 years, maybe we'll just kick it down the road another 2 years. It just doesn't end. So I'm not in favor of this recommendation at all.
Mr.
So,
Haberkorn?
Yes, so we have a list of projects for the next 10 years of every project. So regardless if we move project C to 2 years from now and we bump up another project, we're going to be having projects every year that are a list of projects. So whatever project we do 3 years from now is going to be 3 times higher and so forth. 3 years from now, 3 years later, it's going to be higher. It just is. So whatever project we move in front of this or behind this, we will be faced with the same pricing dilemma on every project. So pricing, in my opinion, won't deter a project or move the priority. Pricing, because pricing is pricing. We look at the issues that are underneath the street, and we have to look at all those variables and not just one testing.
this was prioritized for this year. It
Correct.
was on the agenda, on the SIP for this year.
Right.
That's what I keep going back to. So there was a prioritization of this project.
Right.
And now the price comes in, and we'll just kick it down the road. We'll just charge 25% more. We can bond for it, yeah. And I'm sorry, but state bonding, you know what the legislation's like this year, Mike. I'm sorry. That's,
Yeah, it's not a guarantee.
no, it never is.
I think
But-
right now, we just don't have the funds in that fund available.
We could bond it, but the thing is that we have other utility items that need to be addressed more critically. In our staff's recommendation, we have projects that are more critically that need to be fixed than this project. And they all need to be fixed. If we had a money tree, we
Why
would
was
do
it on
all
the
80
list for
miles
year?
of this project.
Why
We
was
do
it on
all
the
80
list
miles
for
of
this
it.
year? I don't buy that. It was
Okay.
on the list for this year for a
Then,
reason.
then we can move it this year. That's
Yeah,
fine.
I know
But
we
then
can.
other projects that are moved ahead
What
of
are
this
those
one.
projects?
What's that?
What are those projects?
I can get those to you.
Yeah, I want to see those.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm not in favor of this recommendation, so that's where I'm at.
Okay.
We just keep kicking the old can down the road.
The
and-
size of the project doubled as well. That was part of the recommendation from the study. Getting it done all at once instead of bypassing that flow in 2 different sections is a huge cost save. So if we're able to push it down, do it twice the size of a project was a big part of pushing it down the road as well. Originally, it was about half the distance, and then it went.
I never read that anywhere.
That's what I was explained. Yeah.
Well,
So that was a big part of the change.
SCH doesn't say anything about that.
SEH, part of that also said that there's no parts of it that are failing. There's some issues with roots growing in, and that's part of what needs to be fixed during this project, but none of the pipe is actually failing. And if that does start to happen, heaven forbid, then it's an immediate fix. But we don't want to have to bypass that flow more than once, because that's the most expensive part of the whole project.
Okay.
Okay? Do we have a motion?
I will move that we go forward with staff's recommendation to include this project in the 2027 in the 10-year CIP and continue moving forward with the sewer rates as per the rate study recommendation.
Second.
Motion is second. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I'll be voting no.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All against, same sign?
I'm sorry, I meant to say,
That's what I thought. That's what, okay.
thank you.
All right, motion passes 2-1, and we
Thank you.
can
Sorry about that.
reconvene at the council meeting.